this is Kat with Beadaholique, and in this video I'm going to show you how to do a 12 warp Kumihimo round braid. Now you're probably familiar with an 8 warp, so this is going to be a little bit different. It's going to kind of elevate that design, and this is going to be, like I said, that 12 warp. Okay, so let's start by looking at what an 8 warp Kumihimo round braid looks like. Now this is using the Satin Rattail cord, just because it's really nice and bold because I want you to see the shape that it's going to have there. So this is your traditional 8 warp. So I have 4 different colors working in my design here. So let's go ahead and pick this up. This is a 12 warp. So you can see that what's going to happen is we're going to create a little spiral on the outside, and that's going to happen naturally. So what's really nice is this actually is going to use 5 colors. You can use 6 if you want to create a different style of that little wrap, but I'm going to show you how to do this version here with some of the colors. Now I have some really bright contrasting colors here because I want you to see what's happening. So this is just really to show you that technique. All right, so and you can see that this is actually really, this is quite a stiff braid. So that's why we're going to show you with using the Satin Rattail. So, but that's how your little bracelet could look. All right, so let me show you a couple other examples really quick before we get started so you can see what you can do with the Kumihimo and the 12 warp especially. All right, so I have some other couple examples here. And actually, I'm going to start by showing you this example. So you know how I was talking about how you can see there's that purple spiral that runs down the center here? On this one, what I did is I added beads only to that spiral, and it kind of creates a little sort of spiral of beads, which is really nice. Now this one is much smaller. For this one, I used the Eslon size 18, and I used a couple different colors of blue in there to just give it a little variety. Now to show you something different, this is the same braid, but what I did is I added only gold beads to that spiral, and then on the inside I added a mix of the Miyuki Delica, the heavy metals mix, and these are 11-0 seed beads, both of these. These are actually the same seed bead, but you can just see the raw braid here of that size 18 Eslon and see just the size difference next to that Satin Rattail. So you can also see how that braid would look if you did it all in one color. You just kind of get that nice spiral effect happening. So that's another example. Now, we get asked a lot about micro Eslon, and I'm actually showing you this example to kind of show you that it doesn't work as well. So you can actually see, let me kind of move this over here. You can see how tiny that little braid is, and that's still that beautiful coil, and this uses the micro Eslon, so it's a really, really thin cord. Personally, I don't think it works in this application. You're not getting enough, and the braid is sort of not pulling that tension enough. You can actually just see that that spiral is not as tight as the other one. I wouldn't recommend it if you wanted to add beads because it does kind of separate the beads a little bit in a tough way. So this is a little bit harder to do, and personally, I don't like the style as much. I'm very happy with the sort of round braid of the beaded Kumihimo with, again, this is the size 18 Eslon with the 11-0 Miyuki rounds. There you go. All right, so there's a couple little examples of what you can do with this. So I'm going to set some of these pieces aside here and kind of get them out of the way so that we can actually start doing our Kumihimo. All right, so like I said, I have 5 colors here, and you can see that I have 2 lots of the gold because that's going to sort of serve as that purple outside spiral there. I have my traditional Kumihimo disc. You do not need an extra disc or anything else like that to do this. Just as long as you have that 32-point disc, round disc, you're going to be good. And then I have 12 bobbins because I'm going to have 12 warps, of course. And let me just kind of set some of this aside. So I have my little gator weight. And then we're going to be using some E6000 at the end to help glue in our ends. I'm going to show you from start to finish how to do this. And I have some toothpicks for that glue. I have a pair of scissors. And then just a couple pairs of chain nose pliers because I'm going to be attaching a little clasp to the end of this, so I'll need that for my jump rings. All right, so I'm actually going to kind of move my clasp stuff up and out of the way here. There we go. Okay. So first things first, I'm going to take one of my cords here, and you're going to get about 6 yards here. Now that is more than what you're going to need. You're actually going to have a lot left over at the end, but if you're just starting out learning this, go ahead and take that entire length Definitely not knotting it like I'm doing here. Good Lord. All right, so what I'm gonna do is I'm going to find the ends, and then I'm gonna find the midpoint of this. There we go. Without knotting it. All right. So I find my other end there, and then I'm gonna go all the way down to the midpoint here. And I'm gonna just kind of hold that there. So I'm gonna do the same with all the other cords, and then we're gonna tie a big knot when I get to that end. All right, so I have my 6 lengths of cord. Now this is the midpoint here. So I have my 2 gold, a blue, a purple, a light pink, and a dark pink. So I'm just gonna take those and sort of make a little loop there, and then just tie an overhand knot, and just kind of make sure that all those loops slip right through there. So it doesn't need to be pretty, don't worry, we'll be cutting this off later. So just go ahead and get all those cords in there nice and tight. All right, there we go. And let me just pull my blue one there. Looks like he's a little loose. There we go. All right, so just take this knot and you're gonna thread it down through the center of the Kumihimo disc. And I'm gonna take my little gator weight and just clip him onto the end there. If you don't have a gator weight, you can use a binder clip and a bag of pennies, but you do need a weight on this. It's what's gonna help keep your braid where it needs to be as far as tension goes, because you wanna have a nice sort of tight braid. All right, now before I add my bobbins, here's how I want you to set up your board, because what I'm gonna show you is with the bobbins, I've actually labeled them all with little numbers so that I know where they go on the outside here. But let's go ahead and we're just gonna sort of take our cords and do them this way. So take one blue cord and you're gonna bring it up between the 30 and the 31, just like so, okay? And you're gonna take the other blue cord and you're gonna bring it down here between the 15 and the 14, okay? So that's going across there. Now don't worry that your knot's not in the center just yet, we'll kind of adjust that. All right, so now I'm gonna take the purple cord and I'm gonna bring one up here. So it's just to the left of that blue cord. So that's between the 29 and the 30. And then I'm gonna take my other purple cord. Now don't worry if these are all kind of messed up here, that will even out, but that's also why we're gonna do a little braiding and then cut it off later. So don't worry about that. All right, so my purple cord is now between the 13 and the 14. So if you're looking at these, they've crisscrossed, okay? All right, so now let's take one of our pink, the light pink cord, and let's put it up between the 1 and the 2. And I'm gonna take that other light pink cord and I'm gonna bring it down here and I'm gonna put it between the 17 and the 18, okay? And then with the pink cord, the dark one, we're gonna go up between the 2 and the 3. And I'm gonna take my other pink cord here and I'm gonna kind of bring this up and over actually. Like I said, don't worry that this is a bit messy, that's okay. We'll kind of braid out of it. And this is gonna go between the 18 and 19. So again, you're getting that crisscross happening there. All right, now I'm actually gonna kind of scooch these up through the center. Mine did get a bit too tangled. There we go. Da, 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 da. Actually, oops, sorry. We are just working with a lot of cord here. Now, once you've kind of figured out the size that you want, what I like to do in my design space is I will have a little sample swatch of what works best for which cord that I'm working with. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind for yourself if you like. All right, so now we have 4 of the gold cords. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna separate those and they're gonna go on either side of that center dot there. So between the 23 and 24 and 24 and 25. And then on this side, we're just gonna do the same thing and they're gonna go on the either side of that dot and it's gonna be the 7 and the 8 there. All right, now I'm gonna try to fix a couple of these just so that it's not so crazy. I know I said don't worry about it, but I'm gonna worry about it just a little bit. Just wanna fix it just so that my braid starts off a little bit nicer. All right. Now these are really thick, oops, there we go. These are really thick cords, so don't worry too much about that. All right, so now what's gonna happen is, like I said, I have all of my bobbins numbered. So I like to start from here. I consider that sort of my starting point, and you just kind of go around clockwise here. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So just very simply, we're just going to take our cord here. I'm going to grab my little bobbin, and it has my little 1 on it. This is just some painter's tape. You can do that. You don't have to do this step. I just like to do it just to kind of show where I'm at in case I lose my spot. All right, and we can wind our bobbin pretty far. I usually leave maybe 8 inches or so, leaving it out. Okay, so now I'm just gonna go all the way around and attach my bobbins using my little number system, and then I'll be back to show you the next step and how to braid it. All right, so this is the start of my disc. You can see I have all of my bobbins down here at the bottom, and I have my gator weight attached. And what's nice is you can just see kind of hopefully from the side there that it's nice and flush on the top, which is where you want that tension to be. All right, so I know it looks a little weird right now, but let's go ahead and start the braid and you'll see how it's going to develop. So we're always going to start down here at the bottom, and this is going to be our dark pink one, and this is between the 18 and 19. So we're going to release it from the disc, and we're going to simply move it up so that it's between the 28 and 29. All right, so that's our first one there. And then we're going to move over, and I'm going to lift this blue cord between the 30 and the 31, and I'm going to bring this down so that it comes across and goes between the 16 and the 17. All right, now before I rotate, I'm going to do it again at the bottom, and I'm going to pick up the blue cord that's between the 14 and the 15. I'm going to pick that up, and I'm going to bring it between the 32 and the 1. And then I'm going to pick up the pink cord between the 2 and the 3. I'm going to pick that up, and I'm going to bring that down here between the 12 and the 13. All right, so that's our first cross. That's the first sort of X that we're going to do. And then I'm going to rotate counterclockwise, okay? So now this part will look familiar. This will look more like an 8 warp. So we're going to take the gold one that's between the 24 and the 25 and pop it out and bring it up and over between the 6 and the 7. And then I'm going to take the one that's between the 8 and the 9. I'm going to bring that out, and I'm going to bring that down between the 22 and 23. So there's that step. So now we're going to rotate. And now we just repeat that whole process again. So let me show you one more time, because now we have some different colors in play. So you're always picking up the one that's furthest to the left here, and you're bringing it up to the furthest to the left over here. So you're just kind of crossing it up there. And then you're taking the rightmost of this trio, and you're going to bring it down on the right side of the other one. So you'll have those two colors matching here if you've done this particular kind of colorway. And then we're going to pick up this one here and bring it up and over. And then we're going to pick up this one and bring it down. And what you should always have is your colors crossing on each side, just like so. All right, so again, doing a nice little rotation, 90 degrees counterclockwise. And again, we're going to do our gold up and over and our gold up and down. All right, and I'm keeping really good tension. You can see that that is nice and tight in there. I know it still looks a little bit messy. Just hold tight. We're going to get there. All right, so I'm going to start moving a little bit faster here so that we can kind of start to see that braid develop. And once you get this happening, this is very lovely and zen. And if you should ever need to put your Kumihimo down, what I recommend is taking your main color here and leaving it with 3 up, because you know that when you pick up your board again, you're just going to need to bring that back down and you can continue. So if you ever need to put it down, just go ahead and make sure that you have the 3 up so that you know which one to come back and put down, and then you can just continue. Now I'm rotating counterclockwise here. You can do clockwise, but just note that once you've started in a direction, you can't really switch. So just be sure to keep that in mind for this particular style. All right, and always be sort of keeping an eye on your colors there. Just make sure everyone is where they're supposed to be. And again, you can see that those two colors come together. And then you just make sure to continue to rotate. Alright, so I'm going to do a little bit more off camera here, and then I'm going to show you the kind of start of how it starts to develop there, because I want you to see that. And actually, you're kind of already seeing it a little bit, so let me do that so that I can turn it over and show you here. So you can just get a little sneak peek as to kind of what's happening. It's not a lot, but you can see that I did tell you that it was going to start to even itself out there, which it has. So I'm just going to kind of keep going here. And you get a little further, and I am in this video going to show you a finishing technique so that you can actually make a bracelet from start to finish. And it's just one of the many finishing techniques, but it's just something to kind of get you started into learning 12 warp Kumihimo. All right, so I'm just doing one more little rotation there. And now I'm going to leave 3 up there because I don't want to lose my place as I flip this over. So you can see how this is developing there. It's just really, really nice. And you can see that actually, because I had that little hiccup in the beginning there because my cords were a little wonky, but it just sort of evened itself out. So if that happens to you, don't worry, the braid will all come together and even out. So we have that nice spiral happening there. So I'm going to continue. I'm going to do the whole length, and then I'll be back, and I am going to show you how to finish this. All right, so I'm just going to keep on braiding. All right, so I'm just doing one more of my little rotations here, and you can see, and I'll flip it over in a second so you can see where we are with our braid. I'm just going to do one final one here, and you'll notice that again I have really good tension up there at the top, so everything should be all set to go. All right, so I don't need to flip one more up because I know that I'm done for today, but I just want to show you what has developed down here. So this is my braid. Now, let's see here. So let me kind of get some of these out of the way so you can see. And I'm going to bring in my ruler here to just give a little quick measurement. And I have just about 7.5 inches or so. Now, the reason I did 7.5 is I'm probably going to be cutting off a good 1/2 inch here and 1/2 inch here. So that's going to give me about a 6.5 inch bracelet. But I also wanted to show you how much cord you have left. So if you remember, we took 6 yards of cord and we folded those in half, but look at all this extra cord here. So when you really get down to it, if you're using the 1mm satin Rattail like I am here, you're gonna need, this is probably about 4 yards here, or I'm sorry, yeah, about 4 yards here. No, that can't be right. You know what? Let's measure it out because I want you guys to actually see, because this will help you when trying to figure it out. We get that question a lot here at Beadaholique is, you know, how much cord do I need to complete the braid? So I'm going to kind of reverse engineer that for you. So like I said, don't forget we started with 6 yards folded in half. So now we have, that's 1 foot, 2 feet, 3, 4, 5, and comfortably 6, and probably actually about 7 feet here. But we're going to need a little bit to tie off there. Sorry, it keeps getting caught there. Yeah, so I have almost 7 extra feet. So 6 feet, so 2 yards, and that's on 1/2 of it. So yeah, so you're going to have an extra 4 yards. So it's about 2 yards here and 2 yards on the other side, because don't forget, we folded it in half. All right, so what I'm going to do is I actually don't need to put this back on, my little bobbin here. So I'm going to kind of come down, and you want to give yourself a good little length of satin there. So I'm going to cut that off. There we go. And just set that aside. All right, and we can go ahead and remove our gaiter weight now. Now you don't need to undo all of your little bobbins right now. You can just kind of go around and just cut them all off, and you're going to be fine to do that. There we go. So yeah, so just as a guide, don't forget we started with 6 yards and we have 4 yards left over, so give or take, it's going to take about 2 yards. But keep in mind that with Kumihimo, there's no way to add thread halfway through. So, or there's definitely no easy way to do it. that we've been able to kind of find here. But always err on the side of extra, because you never know how tight your braid's going to be, how long it's going to be. Now, of course, if you're working with a thinner thread, it's going to be a little bit different. If you're working, let's say, with an Eslon, it's going to, of course, be different. So just make sure that you're kind of, once you have that little sample swatch that you want to work with, it's much easier. There we go. All right. So all of my bobbins, I'm just going to kind of set those all aside there. And now you can go ahead and take all of your cords off of your disc. And we're going to just pull that down through. And now we're going to make an overhand knot. And again, this is also why you'll see that you want a little extra braiding, because we're going to be wrapping around it. Make sure you get all those cords through. There we go. And now we're just going to pull tight, creating a big old knot there. All right, so this is, in essence, our braid. So you can see here that, you know, I made it a little bit longer, but we're also going to be cutting off some of those lengths. So this is actually probably just going to be about the same. So keep that in mind as well. You're probably going to be covering, I would say, at least a ½ inch, if not 3/4 of an inch. So again, just keep that in mind. All right, so I'm actually going to undo one of my bobbins here that has the gold on it, because that's the color I'm going to use to kind of wrap the edges. So what I mean is, you'll see here on this example, I have black cord going into the ends, and that's just to get this particular end to fit in there really nicely, because we're going to be cutting it off. So just take your little length of your cord here, and we're going to slip it underneath there. And I'm going to go down, like I said, about a ½ inch. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tie an overhand knot. And when you get it to the point where you want it, you're just going to give it a nice tight tug there. And then take your smaller half, I'm going to turn this around, take your little smaller half and hold it up here, kind of gather it with the other cords, and now you can take this other length and we're just going to wrap it around to kind of bulk up that end. So just a little bit. And you want to kind of be wrapping kind of tightly here, just like so. So I'm just sort of coiling it up there. And I've gotten a couple of wraps. You know, this is, again, a thick cord, so you don't need to do too much here. Let's just do one more. And then I'm going to come back to the other end of my gold, and I'm going to tie a nice overhand knot here up at the top. There we go. And you can kind of test, and just to make sure that's going to fit in there. I actually wrapped probably one too many, so I'm going to kind of scooch my knot down actually. There we go. So that it lands a little bit more in the beginning. There we go. Let's give that a nice little tug. And then I'm going to move quickly to the back side here and do it again. Just add another little knot here on the back side. Okay? So we just sort of wrapped it around, we tied some knots, and then we wrapped it around again. All right, so I'm going to cut this thread off right now. And what I'm going to do is, before I attach my little bullet end cap there, I'm going to get a little E6000 on this satin. Now, this is something you don't have to do necessarily if you're working with the Eslon. The Eslon is just a little bit less slippery than the satin, so you don't need to kind of do this extra little step. But I'm just going to take a little bit of that glue, and I'm just going to add it to the little knots there. On that one there, and just kind of smear it around. Doesn't need to be pretty, don't worry, this will be going inside that bullet. And then just adding a little bit of extra glue, just right there, just because I don't want anything to kind of come out. All right, let's set that aside now. All right, so now I'm just going to repeat that on the beginning side. So this is what I mean, where it's like, don't worry if your braid is messy in the beginning, we're going to end up cutting that off anyway. So you'll get a chance to sort of see this again. Let's take our cord, tying a little overhand knot there, about ½ inch or so down, giving it a nice pull. We want to kind of make it nice and tight and thick. We don't want it to come out. All right, and then taking my cord, wrapping it around, trying to just sort of wind it up the braid, up the length of the braid. And you just got to keep it really tight here. All right. And coming around to the back, we're going to take our tail and tie that. And you just got to keep really good tension on it as you're doing this step. It will just help everything go a lot smoother. Trust me. All right, and again, just kind of making sure that that's nice and secure. Then we're going to wrap around back to the other side and tie a little knot on the other side there. So you have sort of what will appear like a knot on the top and a knot on the bottom. And again, this is just really to keep that secure. All right, I'm going to repeat my process here. I'm going to need some fresh glue. The E6000 does dry pretty quickly. However, I would recommend at least 24 hours once we finish the clasp portion to kind of really let it set up, because you don't want to have it come loose on you if you're going to use it too soon. But it does start to take pretty quickly. All right, so on the front knot and on the back knot. Just like so. Alrighty. So now we're just going to set that aside. And yeah, you can see on this first side, those knots are getting pretty good there. So just one quick thing, if you do want to not do a sort of end cap like this, what I would recommend is you can actually leave all of these here and you have a knot on this other side, so you can do the old-fashioned kind of loop there if you don't want to go through all the trouble to finish it off like I'm showing you here. This is just one option. There's a lot of things you can do with this. This is just one of the nice things that's nice and easy. Now, if you had a smaller one, let me kind of show you this example here. So this is an example with a smaller little bullet clutch. So you wouldn't necessarily need to build up that cord as much, because you'd see this is the same thickness of cord. So it actually fits nicely into one of the smaller little bullet clutches there. So you actually don't have to do the whole building part. Now, I do recommend you either use Scotch tape or something to kind of keep all those cords together, because once you cut this and try to glue it in there, it's all going to kind of come apart. So you do need some sort of little anchor thing. So you could always take a little length of, you can see how thin this S-lon is, and tie it around there and sort of achieve the same result by doing it that way. So that's another option for you as well. All right, so now that I've let this dry for a minute, I'm going to come in and I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut the whole like part of the braid here. And this is really thick and I probably need some better scissors, but we are just going to get through this here. There we go. A little extra. All right, we can set that aside. And now I'm just going to trim off these little cords here, these extra ones. And I'm trimming close to the knot. There we go. All right. So I have all of my extras out of the way. So this is kind of what it will end up looking like here. So now, let me just kind of get a little fresh piece there. What I'm going to do is this is going to fit inside there. So we're going to get a little bit more glue. And we're going to take a nice sort of loop there. And we're going to set it into the well and making sure it kind of gets all over there, kind of gets on all the little sides and definitely down at the bottom there. All right. And now we're just going to try to fit this in there. So you can see that I'm just kind of squeezing it together and just kind of, you know, using my nails, just kind of pushing it in there. You can also use like a chain nose plier just to help kind of get it up into the little finding there, because we want it to be tight. So that's where this is a little bit difficult, because we want it to be tight, but we don't want it to kind of look messy. All right, and I'm going to try to get this little extra part in there. There we go. And this is why I recommend using maybe the cord that is your outer cord, because if you see a little bit of that gold there at the end, it doesn't look too bad because it looks like it's part of the design. All right. So for the sake of time today, I'm not going to do the other side, but it's the same portion there. I'm going to actually use my original example here and bend this together. And then I have this nice little toggle clasp here, and I have a couple of 5mm 20 gauge jump rings, and I'm just going to simply just attach it to my clasp here. All right, so I'm just going to give that a little gentle twist to open, slip it onto the loop, add one portion of my toggle, and come in and just close up that jump ring, making sure it has a nice good closure. And then moving, oops, I have a little glue on my fingers, sorry about that. And I'm just going to move to the other side, give it a little twist, slip on my jump ring, and slip on the other portion of the toggle. Oops. Slip on the toggle first. There we go. That makes it a little easier. I'm just making sure that that jump ring is nice and closed tightly. All right, so you can use a toggle clasp. You can also use a magnetic clasp here as well, but that gives a nice little sort of finished look to our braid and our bracelet. So that's all you would need to do, is just add a couple of jump rings and finish off your clasp. All right, so that is how to do 12 warp Kumihimo. You can have a lot of fun with this. If you are wanting to try this and you haven't tried 8 warp, I recommend starting there and then coming back to the 12 warp. It's really, really fun. But yeah, have a good time doing this wonderful technique. And you can find all of these supplies and even more videos and tutorials by heading over to Beadaholique.com.